Hello and welcome to the Thursday Process. I'm Ian Richardson from Richardson & Richardson Consulting. Happy 2023. And I'm joined here by my friend Taher. Taher, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited, pumped. It's going to be great.
As am I. It's 11:30 Eastern or whatever, half past the hour in whichever time zone you're at. We're going to get started in 2 minutes, so just at 11:32. So if you want to grab a beverage, grab a snack, something like that, you got 2 minutes before we dive into content, and we'll hang tight just to let some people pop on in. As you join, you'll notice you're on mute. This session is recorded, so if you have to drop out at before we're done, don't worry that it will be available view on demand on the R&R website. For those of you just joining, thank you for joining us. We're going to get started in just 1 minute's time, or right at 11:32 Eastern. So if you need to grab something, now's the time before we dive into content. Hope everybody's Thursday's going well. All right. Well, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. It's 11:32 Eastern, January 19th. I'm Ian Richardson, and welcome to the Thursday Process. This is a entrepreneurial-focused webinar where we talk business owner to business owner, founder to founder, leader to leader, and get processes used by other people in the IT channel that you can use and adopt into your MSP. Today, we're going to be talking about vertical marketing campaigns. A quick disclaimer before we get started. These presentations are intended for educational purposes only. They shouldn't replace independent professional advice or your own personal judgment. Statements of facts and opinions expressed are those of the participants individually. They don't represent the opinion or position of their employers, certifying bodies, anyone else of that nature. Nothing presented should be considered legal or financial advice. You may be watching this on demand. Today is January 19th, 2023. Please make sure that you take into consideration the information that we're presenting has not been changed or updated since today. A little bit of housekeeping. There are polls in this webinar. The polls are incredibly important. They start in about 7 minutes. You'll see them pop up. Just grab an answer. Those polls help us know who you are and what you care about, what you're focused on. We've got the first quarter's worth of Thursday processes built out, but I take the poll results over multiple webinars, look at the trends, and go out and find people to partner up with on this webinar. So please respond to those polls. If you have a question, click on the Q&A tab. The chat window should probably, I believe, be disabled for this webinar, but go ahead and throw questions and answers. If you have a question and we don't get to it throughout the webinar, I will make sure you get an answer afterwards, so please send those questions out. Last but not least, there's a handout section. You can grab the process that we're talking about. That's yours to keep. Go ahead and download it. It's in the upper right-hand corner, and we'll prompt again before we leave today. So a quick introductions before we dive into what we're talking about. This is Thursday Process. I'm Ian Richardson, one half of the Richardsons at Richardson & Richardson. I owned and operated an MSP for about 16 years. I sold it at the end of 2021 and co-founded R&R with my wife, Carrie. And I'm joined today by Taher Hamid. Taher, you're from MSP Camp. You're also from Alltek. So not only are you on the vendor side of the house or the support side of the house for MSPs, but you are an MSP. You live and breathe and know what's going on. You guys are based out of Lakeland, Florida, and what prompted this conversation was a bit of ineffective marketing, and I want to pass it over to you to introduce yourself a little bit deeper. How long have you been in the game? And since MSP Camp, and I'm camping out in a van right now, also share with everyone just where's the next place you're going to go on the road. Where are you going to pitch your tent next?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll try and keep this pretty concise. There's always like the typical business mantra where it's like a lot of entrepreneurs build based on their own challenges. And so at Alltek, it was so difficult. Content's always been the most difficult part when it comes to campaigns. And so it takes so much time and effort to create good content. And we spent so much time and effort creating our content that I'm like, can I do more with this? And that's literally what built MSP Camp. I'm like, this is great. It's working for us. Why don't I offer it? Because we only market in basically Polk and Hillsborough County. That's it. So I'm like, there's tons of MSPs that can benefit from our templates, our campaigns, and our guides. So that's where MSP Camp came out of. And it's growing great. I'm really proud and happy that my team and all the members are loving this. It's been the most fun I've ever had. And Alltek is growing like crazy too. So it's just cool. It's cool to be part of two organizations that are growing and are fun. Like I know MSPs and the MSP channel can be stressful at times because we're dealing with technology, but it's fun. It's fun to add new clients. It's fun to help clients, and then on the marketing side, now I have my creative outlet. So it's just a great experience, a great place to be. It took, as we'll see in this, a lot of pain and challenges and obstacles to overcome to get here. But I don't know, just very happy, very satisfied with where we're at and where we're going. And we're hearing a lot of positive feedback from members. So it's a good place to be. Very grateful. On the camping side of things, we're actually going to North Carolina in March. So we're going to be camping in North Carolina. Not really camping though, because it's like a pretty sweet like cabin. But we might go outside. It's in the middle of the woods.
Glamping. There we
Yes,
go.
glamping. Yep. Exactly.
We're in Arkansas right now, headed to Arizona. So, and I would definitely describe this van as a glamping experience. There's no tents or ground for us.
Nice.
And so
Fits. And you're doing this just because you're, interviewing a MSP camp. And you're like, oh, I better go camping during the
exactly. This webinar caused us to drive across the country. We just said, like, this is. There's only one place to do this. Speaking of which, as a quick aside, because I am mobile, I am in a mobile office right now. We're on Starlink internet. But you might see if I have a temporary internet disruption, Taher will keep us going, and I will be back. So just as a quick preference to anyone who's tuned in. So diving into this, what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about vertical market specific campaigns. So campaigns geared towards your clients, whether that's an industry or a specific geo or some other sort of filter in your target client profile. And looking backwards, Taher, you guys were investing time, blood, and treasure into campaigns, and they just weren't working. Tell us a little bit about what led to the inception of this process.
A lot of wasted time, and it's something I see not only MSPs but every business doing, and it's really it's frustrating, but I understand why it's happening, right? Because I don't know anything about marketing. So I started at MSP as a marketing intern. I was like, all right, cool. What are we pitching? And it's like, oh, we want to go to healthcare and we want to sell VoIP and all this stuff. So I'm like, cool. And so I did a bunch of research on it and I created a lot of stuff that I thought would work. And then I just started sending it out thinking it was going to work. And, two specific examples I can provide is like when I first started with healthcare, I spent dozens and dozens of hours working on a HIPAA campaign. So I'm like, well, surely healthcare cares about HIPAA because, I just got my master's in healthcare administration and I was like, oh man, this is such an important law, meaningful use, all this good stuff tied into it. Like surely doctors care. And so I created this campaign and it just fell on deaf ears. Nobody cared. And I was like, it was very frustrating because I was even creative back then. So I felt like I was creating good content. I was like, this is really good stuff. Like it outlines it well. But it just fell on deaf ears. And so I had convinced myself early on that like, this is the hardest business in the world to market. I was like, it's impossible to market managed services. and then another example is like VoIP, like I didn't even know what VoIP was before I started at Alltek. And I was like, holy oh my gosh, like look at all this amazing thing VoIP can do. They can find me, follow me. They can do voicemail to text. They can do all of this cool stuff. So I packed all that into the campaign. I packed it all in there. And I was like, just communicating the value of VoIP. And again, nothing. No one cared. Nobody cared about it because it was, to them, it was overwhelming. They're like, I just need a phone system. I want a phone system. It might save me money and I can take it wherever I go. But I was overcomplicating the situation. Like, no, I don't want to transition to that. I like the way things are now. And so those are two examples of the way we were doing marketing, where we want to communicate our services. We want to communicate what we see as the value. And we were leaving out the most critical piece of a campaign, and that's the person we're selling to or the vertical we're selling to.
Yeah, and so I wanna dive into that, because if for those of you who are tuning in, if you're following along, the very first step in your process is to interview people.
Yeah.
And do things. And this really hits into a core value at R&R that resonates with me, which is no sacred cows. Don't assume that your understanding is the correct way, and always challenge your own assumptions.
Yeah.
And I absolutely was guilty of this too, and hence audience, why I'm asking all these poll questions
Yep.
is I don't want to assume that what I think is important, or what I struggled with in my MSP, is universal across the country and across the globe. It's everybody has different experiences, and verticals really do care about different things. And even though HIPAA, since you mentioned that, CFR 45 has been the law of the land since '96, I've yet to meet a doctor who cared.
That's such a good example. When you said you were doing those polls, I was like, boom, there it is. That's the exact thing that most people miss, where it's like, let's just hear from the people here and the people that you're the target market. You know the MSP well because you've been one for so long, but things change quickly. And I just love that. I love that you do that, because that's a perfect example of trying to understand your market, giving them what they want. That's going to engage them. It's great.
And so when you or your team are talking with a client, if you're talking to a doctor's office, you're planning a new campaign, you schedule a call. You say, hey, can we have a quick call? We want to make sure that we're servicing you well, etc. But I'm approaching this. You're talking to your current clients in that vertical. How do you go about asking the questions that show what they value about the relationship with Alltek?
We try and make it about their feelings. So, the questions beforehand, it's like, how did you feel about your technology before Alltek? How did you feel about the situation? What were your frustrations? How did you feel about those? Give us all, because people love talking about how they feel, and they love talking about themselves. So you get that out. Like, what were the frustrations and how did you feel about that? They're going to talk for a while. And if not, you can probe them with additional questions. You're just having an open conversation, but it's primarily about their struggles and feelings beforehand. And then you ask, well, how do you feel now? How have things changed? What do you feel about working with Alltek? What do you like about it? What challenges have we faced for your practice? And it's amazing the things that they say. You're like, I didn't even think about that. Like we did the law one. And he's like, oh, I can open offices now, no problem. I'm like, cool. I didn't even think about that. I had no idea as a lawyer you even I mean, I know lawyers have a lot of offices. That's something it's easy for us to see. But they actually like that now with an IT team that makes it easy with the SharePoint and cloud-based situation. They can just open offices, and they've opened like 5 or 6. I'm like, cool, that's a major advantage that wasn't even on my radar.
Mm-hmm. And so you'll go through an interview process where you're drawing out feelings, impacts, etc. about a situation, but it doesn't stop there. You'll also it's it's funny, the trust but verify line kind of comes up, and it might be a little skewed on this one, but you'll look at your own data too. And
Yep.
when we were talking, one line that you had told me and shared with me really rung out is you look for trends in verticals through your ticketing system, through the PSA, and you find problems. And even if you guys don't have a solution for that problem, you'll market to it, because if
Yep.
you haven't been able to solve it, chances are the competitor down the road hasn't been able to solve it. And I think that's just genius. It doesn't matter if you could solve the problem, just talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's really about triggering a feeling, isn't it? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if we can solve the problem or not.
Yep, 100%, 100%, because you can bring up that frustration. And you obviously, as the MSP, we're working towards a solution. And a lot of times we find that solution perfect. The MSP down the road doesn't have that solution. That's a massive opportunity. Like onboarding and offboarding checklists, most MSPs struggle with this, right? And most clients hate that. So now we can talk about it. We're building the managed services campaign. That's a big piece of what we're talking about. Reporting. We didn't do reporting well. And we see people asking, well, how do I know? What's the reporting on that? Okay, well, I'm going to include that because this is my prospect who is my current client asking and wanting this. And we're not doing it well right now. Now we are, as of just like this quarter, right? So, but we've been talking about it for a long time, you know, and so don't worry, like the no sacred cow thing. It's like, don't be afraid to talk about it, like address it, because that's what your prospects are feeling right now too.
And so looking past the interview, so once you have your interview results, you've consolidated them into some trends and themes that matter to customers. You want to you you move on to actually building the content for the campaign, and what you guys do is really that straightforward. I like that you had mentioned earlier, don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
You're presenting an obvious problem because it's been experienced by many people. So to the doctors, to the lawyers, of course this is a problem. Don't you know anything about my business? It's obvious to them.
Yep.
And you're presenting a simple, straightforward solution that isn't necessarily technical in nature.
Yep.
Can you dive into a little bit and maybe share an example or two of, hey, here's a problem, here's how it can be solved, so people know what we're talking about here?
Yeah. Yeah. So the lawyer one's the one I've done recently. So that's the one that keeps coming to mind so much. But it's like, you know, like the office, the locations. And it's like, you know, you want to expand. But right now, your VPN keeps breaking, right? Or like your connection, I don't even say VPN, it's like your connection to the office isn't working well for your remote users. You're worried about their productivity, right? You don't know if it's easy to expand to that market. Well, this is what we've done for another company, right? This is what we've done for another lawyer, because that's the other thing we found in that is that lawyers really care about what their peers are doing. Every business cares about what their peers are doing, but lawyers especially care what their peers are doing. They want to emulate it. It's why there's so many billboards. There's no way for them to even really track an ROI on a billboard, but they see their peers doing it, so they keep doing it. Right. And so we can tie in those opportunities like, hey, you can keep up with your peers. You can open offices easily, and you can set up productivity monitoring in your remote offices, you know, and we can get that all set up for you. No problem. This is a case study that shows that. So it's like you set these challenges up and you just create content to address those challenges. So those are just some specific examples in the law campaign as to, you know, how that worked. Phone systems. So a lot of them will be on old school phone systems. And it's like, okay, well, you know, how do you have them talk, you know, easily communicate with your office? It's like Microsoft 365 and SharePoint is easy peasy. And then you have just an app on with your VoIP phone. It's the same phone system, but anywhere you go. And they listen to that because that's not technical. You're not getting technical to say VoIP phones. Like they don't even really care about VoIP phones. What they care about is like, hey, your phone's on your mobile now. And when you call out, this is the part that always gets their attention. When you call out, it's calling out from the business's area code, like stuff like that. Like we overcomplicate VoIP, right? We overcomplicate these technical services when we like, what does the prospect care about? They're going to tell you.
Yeah, that concept, and I think it was Einstein, but if I'm wrong, someone go ahead and hold me accountable. That if you can't explain a topic simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Yes.
It's really seeking to understand, hey, what do you care? Like after you've done a VoIP install for a law office, hey, how did this change your world? What did it do? And then just use their words. So I like that I can call from my cell phone and it shows my office number so that I'm able to set boundaries after work, or
Yes.
that, you know, it the calls are recorded on the office recording or whatever. I like that my cell phone rings and I can take a work call from wherever.
What you said is so spot on, because what I'm finding, and this is what happens with every marketing agency, I'm still writing 90% of the content on MSP Camp. My goal is not to be a bottleneck. I don't want to be. I'm doing my best to train my team. I got a team of 5 now. But when it comes to writing content in a way that's going to speak to the prospect, to where they're really going to understand it, it requires years and years of experience so you can explain it in a paragraph. Like we wrote this, we just published this, like all services explained. So it's like, okay, managed services. What the heck does that mean? It's like, here you go. Here's the 6 primary things and 2 paragraphs on each that's going to explain to you in a non-technical way the value we're bringing. There's no way I could have outsourced that. There's no chance. Not many people can write that. And so what you just said is so spot on. I mean, it may be kind of getting outside of the scope of this. I apologize about ranting on this, but it's just so spot on. It's like, that is right. And that's why it's like, when marketing agencies get their marketing coordinators to write these blogs, it's like 10 technology trends to see in 2023, VR headsets and stuff. It's like, there's no intent in that. I don't want to publish that on my MSP because, yeah, it might be an interesting article and it's good to entertain and educate your target market, but it's like, there's no intent there. And it's not, it's not really bringing them closer to you or your business. So it's like, that's what a marketing coordinator is going to do that doesn't have years and years of experience marketing this specific thing that has talked to hundreds and hundreds of prospects. That's why the owner of the company and an in-house marketing person is the best person to create contents for your MSP and campaigns for your MSP, talking to the verticals that they want to go after.
Well, and that resonates home as a aside slightly. There's a lot of buzz, and I'm certain nobody on this call hasn't heard about Chat GPT and what it can do, and it's going to revolutionize everything. And I think that there is, as the same with any technology or any tool, there's some opportunities with AI and with AI generating things, but a computer, we haven't gotten to it yet, where very effectively or efficiently that computer can take topics and relate them to feelings effectively. And people don't buy based off of information.
Correct.
Rarely does logic even play into it. It's about feelings and trust, and this person understands me and understands how this is impacting me, my organization, my team.
Yep. 100%. Like, I've been using ChatGPT a lot just for ideas. It's like, oh yeah, throw some ideas in there, and I'm not using much of it because it's like, it's so surface level. It reminds me of someone that's like studied a bunch on a topic the night before, and then they have to write you like a paragraph, like a paper on it, and you're like, yeah, I mean, I guess you got the surface level, but like, I'm not connecting to this at all. And I've tried a lot. I've tried a lot of stuff in there, and I'm like, because how can we use this in marketing? I'm like, maybe some idea generation, but other than that, at this point, I'm like, I don't know. I'd rather it come from somebody that's, talking to the prospects and the verticals more.
Yeah.
But it is kind of crazy that this is creation 1.
It can maybe create an outline, but that's about it.
Yep.
And so one of the key pieces, and this was one of my takeaways on there, is that when you're presenting out these obvious solutions, you and your team make sure that you focus on hey, here's what you can do today. And so it'll be prescriptive into, you can solve this with this. You're not holding anything back. There's no catch. And any sort of branding and call to actions are passive, meaning it's not in someone's face. We're not talking about services. We're not, hey, you need to call Alltek to make sure this happens. Yep. It's a passive branding, maybe a logo down in the corner, etc. But the way I've always heard it is you give away the farm.
Yes.
And so if the call to action from a social piece is go to the blog might say, hey, here's all the resources that you could do.
Yep.
Because for every one person who might take that information and self-solve, there's going to be 9 or 10 people who are going to take that information and say, okay, well, these guys understand me. Yep. why don't I make them solve it so I can go lawyer a little bit more?
Yes. I've always taken that approach, mainly because this has always been a long game for me. Like, I know I'm not going anywhere. I love Alltek. And so I'm like, I have time. I have time to build my brand in my community and for people to understand us as the thought leaders. And that's just worked beautifully because now people are coming to us rather than we're going to them. And that's just huge, because when you become that vertical specific expert, or even that service specific expert, when someone's looking at going to the cloud or whatever it is, they reach out to you. The dynamic shifts the minute you're reaching out to them, which we do that too, of course, but the close rate's so much higher when they're coming to you. And that's through good content and that passive branding. And like, if you need more information, reach out here.
Because they are the ones who initiated the reach out. It was already you reaching out to them. It's all right. What does this guy want? they're trying to sell me something, them reaching out to you, hey, I think you can help me.
Yes, and all you have to do is confirm what they're already thinking. Our close rate is insanely high when it comes to those people coming to us. It's totally different. Now we do both. Like we do a lot of telemarketing, we do a lot of direct mail. We do both because you have to. You can't just wait on, you can't just have the inbound. But man, is there a discrepancy there? And it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that essentially when someone's opting in, as long as it's a qualified opportunity, it's your deal to lose. All you're going to do is talk them out of a sale.
Yes. Yes. Listening. I think the whole thing with this whole process, so much of it is listening. Listen to your market, and they will tell you how to sell to them.
Mm-hmm. And listen for comprehension instead of listening to respond, listening to hear,
Yes.
so to speak. And so and for those of you following along, I'm looking at step 6, which is around laying out themes for a campaign. So we've had some interviews, we've found some pain points, we've talked about feelings and results from current clients, from resources in the vertical. We've looked at our data and pulled out trends out of the PSA. We've organized all this stuff. We say, okay, we're seeing there's a problem, and here's this big theme across however many resources we've tapped to get some data. Talk us through how you lay out a theme for a campaign, kind of from I've got my data organized all the way to this campaign's now ready to build and launch.
Yes. So the process before I think would be the pain points and opportunities before we get to the theme, right?
Yep.
So pain points and opportunities, we don't even want to start thinking about the theme until we get all those pain points and opportunities. And for MSP Camp members, you see in there, it's like a pain point and opportunity document. Why do I put that in there? Because that's what we use to create the campaign. Why do I put that in there? Because I want all members and everybody to see, like, this is what we're talking to. These are the challenges that our prospects or our clients have literally said to us. So this is what's in their mind. As MSPs, we need to know that. And then the opportunities, what does the campaign address with the opportunities? And that's where all the content comes from. And then from that, we pull out a theme. So like specifically, like with the law campaign, it was like, don't fall behind. It was a lot of like, because we like the theme of the peer pressure of like knowing what your peers are doing, it was more tailored towards making sure your practice is up to speed. So that would be the theme. Not every piece of content has to talk to that theme, but that's the general theme that we're putting in the direct mail, that we're going to be putting in the emails, that we're going to be putting in a lot of the content, that it's like, hey, this is what your peers are doing. This is how we address those challenges. Because we have a lot of service specific stuff too, like Microsoft 365. We look through our PSA. Everyone's asking about, well, how do I do Teams? You implemented it. What do we do? And then we do webinar trainings. Everybody loved the webinar trainings. Our whole thing with Microsoft 365 campaign is you're using it wrong. Because everybody knows they're paying that $15 a month, $25 a month, whatever, depending on what subscriptions they have for their licenses. But they're only using it for Office products and email. And they feel that. They know that. Like all prospects pretty much, even the non-technical ones, understand Microsoft 365 because they're in it all day. And they see the little OneDrive icon and they hear their peers talking about SharePoint. They don't know how the heck to use it. And they know they're missing out. So when we go hard on that in the campaign, even if it's just the organic marketing, not even the ads and not even the direct mail, just the organic posting, you're going to have people going, yeah, my IT doesn't help me with that at all. They just sold it to me. They implemented it and they just, left me out to deal with it. And that's the same stuff that the law cared about. So now there's some crossover between the vertical and the service specific campaigns. You can send it to the same list a lot of times. And so that went great. And then we usually do funny videos. Like I was riding the bike terribly wrong, and they're like, hey, why don't you just use the pedals? I'm like, no, that's too complicated. They're like, no, that's how you ride it. So you're making these parodies, metaphor based on what your prospect thinks, but you're entertaining them. That was a huge hit. That got us a lot of leads. A lot of clients loved it. They want to learn more about the Microsoft 365. So that was basically the gist of it. And here's a good example. I hope I'm not going too far off what we're talking about the process. So we did a video for a partner that's a cloud provider, right? And their specific challenge that their prospect was talking about was pricing. Like we have to sell Azure sometimes. And the pricing is a pain in the butt. Sorry. So it's like, you have to buy 500 credits, and the client and their tenant uses the credits, and then you have to buy the credit. It is actually a real challenge for MSPs. That is their target market. So we did this hilarious pricing video addressing that challenge. And the opportunity is our pricing is straightforward. This is the resources you get. You access it 24/7. So that was a true pain point. And I was like, well, we're already set up like this. I already have my suit on and everything. Let's do another video for the MSPs from MSP Camp on how complicated MSP pricing is. And so we started that process, and we started recording it, and then I stopped the whole thing. I was like, wait a minute. This is an example of us creating content because it's easy. We're just trying to create this video because we're already here. But that's not a true challenge. How many of my prospects have ever said, "Oh, your pricing's too complicated," or my current IT's pricing's too complicated? It's not a true challenge. That's a challenge for a different target market, which is the MSPs. So that was, even at my stage, I almost made that mistake. It's like, don't even create a single piece of content if it's not a true challenge to your vertical market. Like and there's going to be challenges for the dental space, the law space, the manufacturing space. That's different. Like manufacturing, you talk about those, what's it called, CNN, or there's like those specific
CTAs.
Yeah, it's like the computer that runs the manufacturing equipment, right? You talk about that the specifics on that. Now you got their attention. Whereas most MSPs are just blanket approaching managed IT services and cybersecurity. It's like, that's not going to be talking to your vertical. That's why you have to create the campaigns or tailor the campaigns toward that vertical with those specifics that you get through the interviews. And then the theme might be built around that. So I know that was a long answer. I hope some of this has been helpful, and I apologize about the rant, but it's basically you get your pain points and opportunities. That will tell you what the theme should be, and that's what the campaign is going to be mostly geared towards.
I love it.
I
love it.
All right.
And one of the things that really bubbled up was, and I want to dive into this. Hey, I'm riding a bike wrong. So, especially in IT, but in any sort of complex business sale, we all have a tendency to, and I've been guilty of this too, we have a tendency to automatically assume the room understands what we understand. And if you've gone into a doctor's office, especially a highly qualified individual who might be a bit younger in their practice, they'll have a tendency to use medical terms. And no lay person understands those medical terms. And you can tell that the younger doctors, when they'll start throwing out med school at you.
Yep.
And if you go to a doctor who's been doing it for 30, 40 years, like, hey, look, your heart is beating too fast.
Yep.
Instead of saying, hey, you've got your heart's beating too fast. When your heart beats too fast, here's what happens.
Yes.
Instead of, hey, you've got tachycardia, and that could lead to that could lead to cardiac disease, which could cause an attack or something like that. They'll start using different words versus, hey, your heart's beating too fast. We need to learn, this is caused by stress, and we need to help you learn how to relax so that your heart beats a little slower. So sorry,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, if you take these concepts and make it simple to understand, don't use industry lingo, that's good. But then even relating it to a universally understood experience, like, hey, everybody understands the concept of riding a bike. So if you say you're using your technology wrong, you're trying to, you're pedaling with your hands on the bike, you're doing it wrong.
Yes. And that's what the big thing was. You're doing it wrong. Dude, that's so spot on. And here's the other tip, exactly from what you're saying. The patient is not going to tell the doctor, I don't understand what you're saying. The patient's going to go, because they think they should understand, but they don't understand. So the doctor never even gets that feedback that, what the heck am I saying? They think the patient understands what I'm saying. Same thing happens in the MSP realm. The amount of times I've seen even salespeople start talk, which is crazy, it's not even technical, start talking in ways that are not going to connect with the prospect. Usually the prospect's not going to tell that MSP that they don't understand. So make the assumption they don't understand exactly what you're saying, Ian. That's spot on.
Yep. And just and the use of those analogies. I'm a big fan. I'm a process guy, obviously, since I'm having a webinar and do a webinar every week about process. It's kind of where I live. One of the topics that I talk about is why you have to follow a process, and everybody understands baseball. And if you hit a ball in baseball, you go from home to first to second to third, back to home. That's the way it is. You don't get to go from first to third.
Yeah.
You have to follow the bases.
Yep.
And when it comes to explaining process, that's the analogy I use. It's just look, it's baseball. You're going around the bases. You can't skip a step.
That's great.
And everyone understands that analogy. I've yet to fail describing why process works and why you have to follow the process in a way. Once I do that, when someone says, well, I don't understand, like, I don't want to do that step, look, that's second base. You have to go there because that's what lets you get to third.
Yep.
So just using, and I bring up that analogy because that metaphor, everyone understands.
Yep.
Everyone understands that metaphor of baseball, and that describes process. Everyone understands the metaphor of riding a bike. That helps them understand you're doing it wrong.
Yep. So. Exactly. And we go so hard on that, not only in the videos, because that live action videos are basically just metaphors. That's basically the only thing we do, but also in the social media graphics. Like, for instance, we did a hardware one, and it's like, here's your network infrastructure. And it was a traffic, right? And it's like, there was like, the traffic was terrible and it was red. And it was like, there was pothole, there was a crash car, and there was something else. And it was like, wrong firewall, bad speeds, slow computers, like, just boom, they visualize it. Yeah, that I am feeling that. I'm feeling the chaos and the traffic when I'm trying to get stuff done. And then it was like, boom, under that, like, no network bottlenecks, smooth sailing, Alltek, or MSP Camp member. It's really that easy. Like, it's that easy for the prospect to understand what you're trying to say without even saying a word.
And you don't have to talk about technology at all. They get the concept of a congested 2-lane road full of accidents versus 5 lanes of open highway and they're the only car in the street.
Yep.
They get that.
Yep.
Everybody gets that.
Yes.
And so moving on down, one of the key areas with any sort of process is shifting into management. And before we dive into management, there was one question that I want to take a little bit of time here. And Michael asks, what percentage of sales revenue do you spend on direct mail, telemarketing, content development? And so I would expand this. This is kind of like that financial metric. Hey, what's the percentage of gross revenue that Alltek's dedicating to marketing initiatives, essentially?
Not enough.
Not enough. There you go.
It's a great question. I don't know the exact numbers. It's usually been in the 5% area. Usually in the 5% area. And most of our actual spend, like, even now as a big MSP, and marketing's done a massive amount for our company, like, insane. We still don't allocate enough marketing budget. And I think a lot of that's just because we can't really add, like, we can only onboard about 2 clients a month, and we've been packed every month. So there has not been a need to be like, oh, let's add more to what we're doing. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, we're just kind of happy where we are, and we're growing very healthy, and we have enough time to recruit and keep it going. It's been nonstop. So that's why. I mean, invest as long as you have a good process and you have a good vertical campaign and service campaign. Invest as much as you can, especially if you can handle adding more clients. Just keep investing more. Now, when it comes to the specific spend, I spend way more money on people, on in-house people, than I do on telemarketing or direct mail or advertising or any of that. Because I've gone so hard on SEO and organic marketing and current client marketing, right? We're doing webinars, we're doing events, stuff like that. That takes people. It doesn't take money. I mean, it takes some money, but it takes money for the people. We do, part-time caller. We split with a peer group. We do direct mail. We do some really cool direct mail pieces now that I'm super excited about. Like, one we're sending out, it's a physical card. You open it up and there's a physical gift card in there for $3,000. And it's like, hey, no tips or tricks. Like, don't even let us know you have this. Get a quote and slap it on top. Because cost of acquiring a new client is so much, I'm okay with giving them $3,000. I don't have a salesperson to pay commission to all day. And that's only $2 a piece. That's only $2 a piece. Yep. I'd rather send that than $1 postcard all day. So yeah, we're moving more into that, especially now that we have MSP Camp. So like any cool ideas we have, it's like all the members get to benefit. So I'm like, sure, why don't we like come up? Like we're creating like a puzzle one too. It's anyway, getting a little off topic, but about 5% currently. But I know some people say 10%. That'd be cool. If you can manage it, go 10%. Like,
Yep.
and as long as
And
it's effective.
That's similar to what we do here at R&R as well. As we go between 5 and 10%.
Okay.
And leaning into labor is almost always the most effective the most effective spend. Michael, another resource which probably is just a fast Google search is the SLI percentages. I believe it used to be Paul Dippel's organization. It's now part of ConnectWise, but that is a fairly widely published number on some webinars, and I believe it was around that 5 to 12% range was the most successful thing in MSPs, and even broader out, you'll see a lot of recommendations in that 5 to 10% range of spend annually across service-based organizations. Yeah. So diving into management, there's kind of any sort of process requires that look at. You can't just set a process and then forget about it and walk away, and 2 years later, hey, it's still running. You got to tap the wheel, right? It's cruise control. Hey, the speed's going well, but you got to look in front of you, make sure you're not going to run into someone. You got to tap the wheel, make sure you're staying on the highway. So a really, really good process, maybe, and this might be a bad analogy, could be like the Tesla autopilot thing. Maybe, I don't know if that's still running into people or not. So your mileage may vary. But when you guys are running, talk to us about the managerial things that you keep in terms of, hey, weekly, monthly, quarterly. I'm keeping my eyes on these areas and indicators to know this is going well, or maybe we should kill this campaign early because we can tell it's fallen flat.
Yeah, that's such a great question. So anything, and it's amazing. They're like, oh, I want to do a webinar. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do a webinar. But there's about 12 steps to doing a webinar. And so if you just count on your coordinator to just know the steps, it's going to fall apart. It's like the analogy of the baseball. Like you have to have it laid out, and so they have to complete before they move to the next step. So we put everything in Monday.com. There's 100 project management tools. I'm not pitching Monday. I just like it. And it's like when we're starting a new campaign, we copy the template, paste it, fill it with the content, and then each individual coordinator, whoever is assigned to what, goes on to what they're doing, whether it's social media, whether it's the email marketing, whether it's updating the advertising, whether it's updating the remarketing, whether it's setting up that webinar. All of the pieces are in there. So I never have to worry about what's getting done. I go into the dashboard. And then we look at, there's so many metrics to look at, of course, like what's getting the most engagement. For social media, there's another process to do in there where it says, okay, the best content from 90 days ago, you can repost that, right? And with campaigns, make sure the campaign content is posted out. With webinars, how many people showed up? Did this one suck? Like we did a webinar on bookings and forms. I thought it was going to be awesome. There was like 15 people that showed up. And so like, all right, well, most of our webinars now are like Microsoft Teams, Advanced Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Excel Part 2, because those are the ones that I know everybody shows up to, everyone gets value from, we get leads from it. So I'm like, cool. So you just kind of refine over time on what's working. And so for the vertical specific marketing, are we talking KPIs or specifically the management process? Like project management one?
Both.
Okay, cool. Yeah, perfect. So like,
both.
Yeah, perfect. So it's like, with direct mail, it's really, really fairly simple. Like you got to make sure you have the list that you're sending to every quarter. You don't do it once and then you bail, right? Like you have to send a different direct mail piece, either vertical specific or service specific, to that same list consistently. And then you get an aggregate ROI. How many people called and discussed that specific direct mail piece? Don't quit after a quarter. Email marketing, you keep it going. You're looking at the open rate, the click-through rate, which emails did best, not how many leads did I get, right? You don't want to start with how many leads did I get on this email or this email campaign. You want to say which emails were the best, which ones did people engage with the most. And then over time, you're going to get leads from that. But managed services, like how it works is like, it's our biggest benefit and our biggest challenge. It's hard to get new clients and it's hard for us to lose clients, right? So you have to stay in front of them and look at your ROI over time. Here's an example. We look at all of the tactics within our marketing strategy, whether it's the service specific or vertical specific campaigns. Every single one of those tactics, not one has not provided a closed client, not one. Telemarketing, direct mail, emails, in-person events, everything has brought a client. Very few, if any, has brought in a lot of clients, right? So it's like you have to consistently do all the things. And I think most of the metrics need to be what's working best and how do we get better at that. And then leads need to be over time. Or not leads. Leads are a good indicator anytime, but closed business. What closed business for me? Because think about it. We only have like 160 clients, but we're 4 million plus MSPs. Doesn't take a lot of clients. It does not take a lot of clients to be a decent sized MSP. You just need a few dozen to really be on the next level. So that's why a lot of tactics within your strategy are not going to be like, oh, cool, I got like 20 leads from that one ad. It's like, no, that's not how it works. You got to map all the pieces of the campaign working. And it's like, okay, what is it? Well, what does that mean? Well, in MSP Camp, there's a free guide. I'm not pitching MSP Camp. They're totally free. There's an ultimate marketing checklist and then like a campaign implementation checklist. That will be your project. Make sure you check all of those things on the guide. Make sure you check all those things when you're starting your campaign, whether it's an MSP Camp campaign or your own campaign. You're like, okay, cool. I better set up retargeting. Cool. I better have an email campaign. Awesome. I better get that direct mail every quarter, right? So that's just a template of the things I should be doing every week, month, quarter. And the cool thing is, like Ian said, a lot of his marketing is people. You don't even have to be doing it yourself. Make sure you have good people. Like I know Steve's on their team now. He's incredible. You guys said this guy's amazing. I need to get him on my team. That's what I did too. And I have amazing people on my team. And I'm saying y'all are going to do this because I need to be thinking about content, vision, and obviously things like this. You know, I can't be in the weeds of scheduling out social media posts. Like, no, get a part-time coordinator to do those kinds of things as long as it's structured. You can't hire someone for marketing and say, do marketing. They'd be like, what the heck does that mean? Right. And it's like, here's your checklist.
That you can't assume that they know what you want them to do.
Yes.
So one area that I want to kind of to dive into a little bit further, and you've been hammering this, is that consistency.
Yes.
And marketing, vertical specific or not, really, and I say this every time I engage with someone over 16 years through managed services and a couple now with consulting. I found all marketing is consistency and luck. You can't convince someone to buy something or to hear or to engage with you by consistently presenting a message. And as long as that message is properly geared, that's what we've been talking about. By consistently presenting a message, something will happen in that person's world that will cause them to be receptive to that message.
Yes.
And that's the luck. So as long as you're following your cadence and you're sending your direct mail or your email or your social, your webinar, your networking, whatever it is you're doing, as long as you've got that message nailed in and you're consistently offering it up, hey, would you like to engage? Would you like to engage? Would you like to engage? 3, 4, 10 times down the road, someone will say, you know what? XYZ happened.
Yep.
And you guys have been preaching this the whole time. And now, I am ready to engage with you.
100%.
So
I have so many examples of that. I won't waste our time on this, but so many examples of that where it's like, if I would have given up, I would have lost out on, tens of thousands of MRR, but I didn't because I'm annoying.
Mm-hmm. And so some of the infrastructure that you guys, that we dove into when we were talking about making sure that you've got that medium, Zoom, Teams, whatever you're going to be using, find some sort of medium that you can do that, as well as pairing that with transcription software. Look at that mute.
That was skill.
Professional.
I was like
that's a
impressed.
Professional webinar right there. Transcription software. We're both big fans of Descript, but something that can transcribe the meeting so that you don't have to go through and listen back and forth. You can just skim and read and then pull out specific areas or quotes. You'll need some design software, some editing software, potentially some labor to support the campaign. But one of the big things is that CRM, that ability to centrally manage, is put in something in there, whether it's part of your PSA, whether it's a standalone system, and actually use the CRM properly. Don't just say, oh, well, it's over here. Set up some stages, set up the funnel, and track. And how important is that CRM and tracking to successful campaigns?
Oh, it's critical. I mean, it's so important. Um, whether, and it's not like you said, it's not just email. It's updating. How many times have this person been called? How many times have they been sent an email, direct mail piece? Have you talked to them at all? What was the conversation like? What do I send them next? There's so much that can be managed within that. Um, Especially people that go crazy with it. It's incredible what you can do. I haven't gotten it as good as I should have, just to be honest. That's why I'm getting somebody on my team to really dive into it. Um, to really like iron that thing out. So yeah, I mean it's just critical. Any marketing, you need to have a central management system like telemarketing, for instance. If I didn't have a CRM for telemarketing, like who the heck have we called? How many times have we called them? Like now I get a report of these are the recordings. This is how many calls. This is the efficiency, the effectiveness. It's great. And without that, like you're just flying blind, and you don't want to fly blind. I think a lot of marketing is experimentation. Like, for instance, I just did a direct mail piece with a physical gift card in it with $3,000. I don't know if this is going to work or not. There's no data saying, oh, this type of direct mail works great, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it because I received, something from ZipRecruiter that had that. I thought it was brilliant. I'm a decision maker at my business. I'm like, cool. Maybe other decision makers will like it in the form of an IT card. So sometimes marketing is like, I know as IT people were like, oh, we got to have the analytics to back it up. And analytics are super important to see what's effective and what's getting you leads. But sometimes you are going to need to experiment, and then you'll see like, did that work or not? But sometimes think of it as sunk cost, because sometimes you're going to think of a new idea, and just be able to experiment. Don't get too caught up in like, well, last time we did direct mail, we didn't get any leads. It's like, well, do it again. Try a different one.
Yep. Yeah. Don't assume that just because you didn't have traction with one specific tactic built out around a specific message through a specific strategy to a specific market means that that's, well, obviously this tactic will never work.
Yeah.
You have to keep permission to play.
Yep. Yep.
And so, speaking of playing and camping, one of the big things that we like to that we like to talk about is who we're talking to on Thursday Process. And you are an MSP, you've been in an MSP, but you and your team have formed MSP Camp to say, hey, look, we're an MSP, but we're here in Lakeland. We're hanging out in our region. We're not trying to deal with California. California is not competition. New York's not competition. Other areas in Florida aren't competition. You're not going to go down to Miami. And so you guys have formed MSP Camp. So talk to us about that. And you have an offer that you're sharing with anyone who's been on Thursday Process with us today. So go ahead and share some details about this RR Camp coupon, which
Yeah.
you'll notice right on your screen there. Grab your screenshots now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been the funnest experience of my life. Other than my kids. My kids are like the coolest thing ever. But like second to that, when it comes to work, definitely the funnest work thing ever. And I think what I like so much about it is the members are so engaged. Like when we get a new member, almost nobody cancels. And I think it's because our price point, it's like $100 a month for Ranger, or $300 a month for Leader, right? And you get 10% off with this coupon forever, right? It's not like 10% off first month. It's like, no, 10% forever. And if we raise prices down the future, existing members don't have to worry about that, right? So you're locked in. You've locked your county in, and you get a discount, right? So it's pretty easy to sell, to be honest. And then they get in there and they're like, holy crap! Like here's hundreds of hours worth of content, and it's all good content. I do quality over quantity. Sure, there's a lot of people that have a lot more content than me, but not touching quality. And I mean, I'm a humble guy, but we put so much time into every piece on that thing. So in addition to the full campaigns that are service specific, and now we're actually adding the vertical specific campaigns, right? So within this quarter, we're going to have more vertical specific campaigns, because it's one thing to preach about it, but now we're going to get it up there for our members to use and tailor it for their MSP. We also have the templates, right? So we just did this sweet brochure today. It looks awesome. It's incredible. And it's like, here's the main talking points. The MSP can update it with their own talking points and their own photos and their own client testimonials. And then we also do like, here's what service tiers look like. Here's service tier with monitoring for some of those break fix MSPs. Here's what a presentation folder looks like. So it's those templates too. And then for people who are like, well, I don't want to pay for another thing, we have free guides on there where it's like, hey, here's how you do a webinar. Here's how you do social media. Here's how you do video marketing for your MSP. Totally free. Podcast is totally free. I want to provide value to MSPs. And if people want to pay me to use the content, that's cool too. That's awesome. So that's what MSP Camp is in a nutshell. It saves MSPs so much time. to not have to worry about content. They just have to worry about tailoring their content with their brand and the way they would say it.
And so this is designed to help someone get started. If you're not doing anything today, head on over to MSP Camp, join the crew, join the tribe, and let's get out there and start marketing out together today, so that you can start making an impact, and most importantly, keeping that permission to play in mind. Right? It's okay if you try your first campaign and it falls flat, because it doesn't mean failure. It just means, hey, congratulations, you learned some things on, like, okay, what not to do. What mistakes have we made, and how can we tweak this for next time?
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool because like we have two main target markets. One is like smaller MSPs that are just trying to get their marketing going, and it's like, awesome, here's all the guides, but I really think you should hire somebody, right? And then the other thing is actually enterprise MSPs that are like even larger than us, that the marketing manager is like, oh my God, I get all this, I don't have to worry about creating the content. So it's funny that there's like two niches being served here that organically has happened.
Love it. And so we're having some questions come on in, and so I'll just go ahead and rattle these off, folks, as we go through there. But as a quick reminder, up in the upper right hand corner, there's that handout section. Go ahead and download this process so that you have that for your records. Joseph had mentioned, any chance of getting scripts for recording your own videos? Taher, do you guys have like some script guidance or things like that in MSP Camp as a resource?
So in MSP Camp, there's a free video marketing guide. So it shows like, what kind of things you need to buy to start out. Just use your phone and obviously a mic and a light, because those are actually more important than the video. And then we have examples and ideas of the type of content you want to shoot. When it comes to specific scripts, we actually include video and tech tips for our members. It's a good idea, though. I'll be happy to put a free guide together in the coming weeks on actual scripts and how to do it. The other thing you do is go to other MSPs' YouTube, like Alltek Services, and look at how we do it. It's usually an intro and what we're going to talk about, video intro, and then content with a call to action at the end. And usually call to action is not reach out. It's like, hey, subscribe.
Garrett was asking a couple of things. Do you provide a CRM, and do you provide leads? I believe, Taher, the answer on both of these are no. Garrett, if you want to ping on the very next slide is some contact information for myself, but if you want to ping us at connect@r&r.consulting, just the word connect at r&r.consulting, I'm happy to give you some rundowns on different CRMs, as well as share, hey, here's the one that R&R uses, and if you want an introduction to some specific people at one of those CRM companies, happy to give you a resource there. What do you guys use in-house, Taher, for CRM?
Use ActiveCampaign, but I'd love to talk to you too, and also maybe even have a guide for members that you guys provide to members. Like, hey, this is how we would do it. Because we use ActiveCampaign, it's good. It's good. But you guys really know what you're doing, so I'd love to pick your brain.
Yeah. At R&R, we use a product called Membrane, which is mem for like memory. And hang on one second. Stop. Don't touch it. Yeah. You're good. You keep touching it at all. Sorry. We're in a camper van, and we've got a heater in here. The heater is a little it has become warm, and one of the things about camper vans is that you do have to not push buttons too many times so you can damage equipment. So preventing some damage.
Nice.
We use membrane.com, and if anyone wanted to be introduced to them, I'm happy to do that, and I can get full free product trials. We've got a strategic partnership with that organization there, and they're one of the better ones. So happy to do that. And then Garrett, when it comes to leads, you can my wife and business partner Carrie's actually doing a series with Synchro about how you can create leads, how you can really kick off with that. I might recommend looking into that. So if you want to email us, we can get you the registration link to that content, so you can dive more into that. So, and then really we're kind of We're 24 seconds left, Taher. I want to give you the last word. What's a send off, my friend?
Send off is we have an MSP Camp game coming out in about a week. So I'm going to send it out to everyone so y'all can play it. It's an example of knowing your vertical market because I'm targeting a bunch of nerds. So the game will be out, the MSP Camp game, and I'll send it out to everybody. And I can't wait to play it myself.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.